My brother started dating my girlfriend a week after we broke up, and then they asked me for financial help. I've always believed that the worst kind of heartbreak isn't the one that blindsides you, it's the one you see coming, the one you brace yourself for, but it still shatters you all the same. And nothing in my life had prepared me for the kind of betrayal that would come from my own brother. It had been a week. Just a week since I broke up with Darren. A week since I sat across from him in that tiny cafe, pushing my barely touched coffee away as he told me, in his careful, practiced tone, that he didn't think we were right for each other anymore. A week since I walked out of that cafe with my head high, refusing to let him see how much his words had carved into me like a dull knife. But nothing had prepared me for what came next. I was at my parents' house, helping my mom set up for Sunday dinner when my younger cousin, Mia, let the bomb drop. "Did you see the post?" she asked, her voice laced with cautious curiosity. I looked up from the salad bowl I was tossing. "What post?" Mia hesitated, her fingers tightening around her phone. Maybe you should check for yourself." A feeling like ice water poured down my spine as I grabbed my own phone and tapped open social media. The first thing I saw was Darren's name, tagged in a picture. His arm was draped around someone's shoulders, his smile just as charming as it had always been. The caption read, "Sometimes, the best things happen when you least expect them." And there, tucked under his arm, smiling as if she hadn't just torn my heart into pieces, was my brother's girlfriend. Or at least, the girl who had been my brother's girlfriend the last time I checked. I didn't even feel the phone slip from my fingers onto the kitchen counter. Mia winced. "Yeah. I thought you should know." My mother, completely oblivious to the crisis unfolding, called from across the room. "Sweetheart, could you grab the bread from the oven?" I didn't move. Mia reached for my hand. "I don't know what happened, but—" "What happened," I said, my voice eerily calm, "is that my brother is dating my ex. A week after I broke up with him." Silence. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, my feet moving on autopilot. I barely heard my mom calling after me, barely registered Mia scrambling to say something. All I could hear was the sound of my pulse hammering in my ears. I confronted my brother, of course. He didn't even have the decency to look guilty. "Look, I know this seems bad, but—" "Seems bad?" I repeated, incredulous. "Are you actually serious right now?" He sighed, rubbing his temples like I was the one being unreasonable. "I didn't plan for this to happen, okay? Darren and I were just talking after your breakup, and we realized we had a connection." "A connection?" I echoed, my voice hollow. "You mean the connection where he was my boyfriend for 2 years and you were supposed to be my brother?" His jaw tightened. "It's not like you and Darren were married or anything." I had to laugh at that, an ugly, bitter sound. "Wow. Just, wow." He folded his arms. "Look, I get that you're upset, but you don't own Darren. You broke up. People move on. I broke up with him a week ago." He hesitated, like maybe, just maybe, that fact hadn't fully clicked for him. But then he squared his shoulders. "It just happened, okay? We didn't mean for it to." I stared at him, really looked at him. The brother I had grown up with. The one I had stood up for when he got picked on in school, the one I had lent money to when he was struggling with rent, the one I had defended against our parents when they said he wasn't ambitious enough. And now, here he was, looking at me like I was the problem. I took a slow breath, shoving down the 1,000 things I wanted to scream at him. "Fine," I said finally, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. "You want him? Have him. But don't ever expect me to pretend this is okay." I turned to leave. "That's it," he called after me. "You're just cutting me off over a guy." I stopped. Slowly, I turned back. "This isn't about Darren," I said. "This is about you. About what kind of person you just proved yourself to be." And with that, I walked away. Weeks passed. I buried myself in work, dodged calls from my brother, ignored the occasional texts from Darren. I didn't want apologies. I didn't want explanations. I wanted to move on. And then they had the audacity to ask me for money. It was a Sunday afternoon when my phone rang. My brother's name flashed on the screen. I almost ignored it. Almost. But some part of me, the part that still remembered all the years before this, picked up. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. There was an awkward pause. Then, a hesitant, "Hey, listen, I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't serious, but Darren and I are kind of in a tough spot financially." I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it, wondering if I was hallucinating. Then I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're joking." "I wouldn't be calling if I was," he said, defensive. "We just need a little help with rent. It's just temporary." I took a slow breath. "Let me get this straight. You stole my boyfriend, and now you want me to fund your little happily ever after?" His silence was all the confirmation I needed. "I cannot believe you," I said, shaking my head. "No. Absolutely not." "Come on," he said, irritation creeping into his voice. "You have the money. It's not like you'd even notice." That did it. I felt something snap inside me. "You know what?" I said. "You're right. I do have the money. And you know what else? I have self-respect. Which is why I am not giving you a single cent." "You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "You were being dramatic when you thought you could betray me and then come crawling back for help. I was your sister. I would have done anything for you. And you threw that away for what? A girl?" I could hear him trying to come up with a response, but I wasn't interested in hearing it. "Lose my number," I said, and hung up. And just like that, the last thread connecting us snapped. But for the first time in weeks, I felt light. Free. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that I had made the right choice. After hanging up on my brother, I expected to feel triumphant. Victorious. Like I had finally taken back control of a situation that had felt so wildly out of my hands. But instead, as I sat there staring at my phone, my heart was pounding. Not out of anger. Not out of regret. But out of something that felt an awful lot like grief. Because that was it. That was the moment I truly lost him. For weeks, I had been telling myself that it didn't matter. That if my brother was willing to betray me, then maybe he was never the person I thought he was to begin with. That I wasn't losing someone worth keeping. But grief doesn't care about logic. It doesn't care that someone hurt you. It doesn't care that you were right to walk away. It just lingers. I spent the next few days in a haze. I went to work, I smiled when I needed to, I went out with friends who had no idea what was going on because I couldn't bring myself to explain. But every night, as I lay in bed, my thoughts ran in circles. Was there something I could have done differently? Had I overreacted? Should I have at least heard him out? No. No. I knew better than that. And yet, that gnawing ache in my chest didn't fade. So, when my phone buzzed late one night with an unknown number, I almost didn't answer. But something told me to. "Hello?" There was a brief silence. Then, a voice I hadn't heard in weeks. "Hey. Darren." Of course. I closed my eyes, exhaling through my nose. "What do you want?" He sighed like this was difficult for him, like I was the one who had made things complicated. "Look, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but... You got that right. He hesitated. "I wanted to talk. To explain." I laughed bitterly. "Explain what?" "How you ended up in my brother's bed a week after we broke up." "It wasn't like that," he said quickly. "I swear." "Then tell me what it was like, Darren. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like that." Another sigh. "Look, I know it was fast. Too fast. But I didn't plan it. Your brother and we connected." "You connected," I repeated flatly. "That's funny. We dated for 2 years, and I don't think I ever heard you talk about connection once." "That's not fair," he said. "I cared about you." I scoffed. "Yeah? You sure have a funny way of showing it." There was a long pause. "I didn't call to fight," he said finally. I miss you." I went completely still. The audacity. I let out a slow, disbelieving laugh. "You miss me?" "Yes," he said, almost pleading. "I know things got messy, but we had something real." "Anne. Stop." My voice was ice. "Just stop." "But." "No, Darren." I was sitting up now, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached. "You do not get to call me and say you miss me while you're with my brother. He was quiet. You made your choice, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. And I made mine. So whatever guilt you're carrying, that's yours to deal with. Not mine. I waited, giving him one last chance to say something, anything, that might make me believe he wasn't as heartless as I thought he was. But he didn't. So I hung up. And this time, I didn't feel grief. I felt free. My brother didn't reach out again after that. I thought maybe he had finally gotten the message. But I was wrong. Because 2 weeks later, he showed up at my door. I was halfway through an episode of a show I wasn't even paying attention to when the doorbell rang. At first, I thought maybe it was a delivery. But when I opened the door and saw my brother standing there, hands shoved into his pockets, looking just a little too casual, I knew. I knew exactly why he was here. I crossed my arms. What do you want? He gave me that half-smile he always used when he was trying to charm his way out of trouble. Can't I just visit my big sister? I stared at him. No. He sighed. Okay, fine. I need a favor. I actually laughed. You're unbelievable. He had the nerve to look offended. I'm coming to you because I trust you. Oh, that's rich, I said. You trust me? The way you trusted me enough to tell me you were dating my ex. The way you trusted me enough to not go behind my back. His jaw tightened. Are you going to keep punishing me forever? You don't get to decide when I'm over this, I said sharply. But you know what? That doesn't even matter. Because whatever favor you need, the answer is no. He shifted uncomfortably. You don't even know what it is yet. I don't need to. He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. Look, Darren and I are in a tough spot right now. Oh, I'm aware, I cut in. He already tried to call me for money. My brother's eyes widened slightly, but he recovered quickly. Right. Well, we just need a little help. I shook my head in disbelief. Unbelievable. Come on, he said. You know we're struggling. You have the money. It wouldn't even be a big deal for you. I let out a slow breath, staring at him. This was it. The moment I knew for sure that whatever bond we had once shared was gone. Because if he had any real remorse, any real love for me, he never would have asked. No, I said simply. He frowned. You're really going to let me struggle? You let me struggle, I shot back. You let me sit there, blindsided, humiliated, betrayed. And you didn't care. So no, I don't owe you anything. His face hardened. You're being selfish. I smiled. For the first time in a long time? Yeah. I am. And then, just like I had done with Darren, I shut the door in his face. After shutting the door in my brother's face, I expected him to give up. I expected him to take the hint, accept that I was done, and leave me in peace. But no. Because the thing about people like my brother and Darren? They don't know when to quit. A few days later, I got a text from an unknown number. Unknown, hey, it's me. Please don't block me. Just hear me out. I stared at my phone, debating whether I should even respond. But before I could decide, another message came through. Unknown, I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't serious. Darren and I are about to lose our apartment. We just need something to hold us over until we figure things out. I sighed, rubbing my temples. It was almost funny. Almost. Not only had they gotten together immediately after my breakup, but now they were struggling together, too. A twisted kind of poetic justice. I could have ignored the message. Could have blocked the number and moved on with my day. But I was tired. Tired of the silence, of the unanswered questions, of pretending this wasn't still clawing at me from the inside. So I responded. Me, why are you asking me? It took less than a minute for him to reply. Unknown, because I know you. You won't just sit back and watch me struggle. You've always been the one who helps. I stared at those words for a long time. And that's when I realized something. My brother hadn't reached out because he felt guilty. He hadn't reached out because he wanted to fix things. He reached out because he still thought I was the same person I had always been. The person who would sacrifice her own happiness for the sake of others. The person who would put family first, even when they didn't deserve it. The person who, no matter what, would never turn her back on him. And for a long time, he had been right. But not anymore. I called him. The phone barely rang once before he picked up. I knew you'd. No, I interrupted. He paused. What? No, I repeated. I will not help you. I will not bail you out. I will not fix your mess for you. He scoffed. Seriously? You're really gonna do this to your own brother? No, I said, my voice calm. You did this to yourself. He let out a bitter laugh. You're being dramatic. That's funny, I said. Because I seem to remember you telling me that exact same thing when I found out you were dating my ex. That was different, he snapped. I tilted my head. Was it? There was a silence. A long, uncomfortable silence. Then, quietly, he said, I didn't think it would turn out like this. I sighed. And whose fault is that? I thought it would be easy, he admitted. Darren and I got caught up in it. And at first, it was great. But now? Now what? He hesitated. Now I realize how much I messed up. Something in his voice sounded different. Not defensive, not arrogant, just defeated. But it didn't change anything. You don't get to realize that now, I said. You should have realized it when I was sitting there, blindsided, while you smiled in my face and pretended nothing was wrong. I'm sorry, he said, and for the first time, I thought maybe he meant it. But it wasn't enough. Good, I said. Now deal with the consequences. And for the last time, I hung up. At first, I thought that was the end of it. But then, a few days later, I got a call from my mother. The second I answered, she was already mid-sentence. Why are you letting your brother struggle like this? She demanded. I closed my eyes, inhaling sharply. Did he call you? Of course he called me, she said. He told me everything. I let out a humorless laugh. Did he tell you everything, Mom? Or just the parts that made him look like the victim? She hesitated. He said he made a mistake, but that's no reason to abandon family. I gritted my teeth. You know what's funny? When he abandoned me, I don't remember you calling him to tell him he was wrong. Silence. That's different, she said finally. I scoffed. Of course it is. Honey, listen, she sighed. I know you're hurt, but you have the ability to help. Why wouldn't you? I shook my head. Because it's not my responsibility to clean up their mess. But he's your brother. No, I said firmly. Not anymore. And for the first time in my life, I hung up on my mother. Over the next few weeks, I heard bits and pieces about what was happening with them. Apparently, Darren and my brother had to break their lease after failing to make rent. Darren moved back in with his parents. My brother tried to go back to my mom's house, but she refused to let him stay permanently. They weren't homeless, but they weren't exactly thriving either. And you know what? For the first time, I didn't care. Not because I was cruel. Not because I wanted them to suffer. But because I had spent so long putting everyone else's happiness before my own. And now? Now, I was finally choosing myself. For the first time in months, my life felt peaceful. There were no unexpected texts, no guilt-tripping calls from my family, no lingering shadows of my past sneaking up on me. Just silence. And for the first time in my life, silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like freedom. I wish I could say my brother never tried to reach out again. That he learned his lesson, took responsibility for his actions, and moved on. But that would be giving him too much credit. Because 2 months after our last conversation, he showed up at my door. Again. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I had just gotten back from grocery shopping when I heard the knock. At first, I thought it was a neighbor. Maybe a package had been delivered to the wrong address. But when I opened the door and saw him standing there, looking worse than I had ever seen him, disheveled, exhausted, almost desperate, I knew this wasn't going to be a simple conversation. I crossed my arms. What do you want? He sighed. I just need to talk. I let out a humorless laugh. Talk? About what? About how you stabbed me in the back. About how you tried to manipulate me into helping you after the fact. About how you got Mom involved to guilt me into saving you from your own mistakes. He winced. I deserve that. Yeah, I said. You did. A long silence stretched between us. Finally, he exhaled and said, I lost everything. I arched an eyebrow. You mean you finally faced the consequences of your own choices? He gave a dry laugh. Yeah. That. I should have felt bad for him. Should have felt some kind of satisfaction that karma had finally done its job. But I didn't feel anything at all. Darren left, he admitted. When things got bad, he bailed. Moved on to someone else. Guess I should have seen that coming. I tilted my head. You mean the guy who jumped from me to you in a week? That guy? I feigned surprise. Wow. Shocking. He let out a defeated sigh. Yeah. I guess I was an idiot. I shrugged. That's one word for it. He shoved his hands into his pockets. I don't even know why I came here. I did. He came here because, deep down, he still thought there was a chance I'd forgive him. That I'd let him back in. That I'd be the sister he had always relied on, the one who fixed things, the one who made everything okay. But that wasn't me anymore. I'm sorry, he said. And for the first time, I thought maybe he actually meant it. But it didn't change anything. I took a slow breath. I appreciate that. But it doesn't fix what happened. I know, he said quickly. I held up a hand, stopping him. Listen. I don't hate you. I don't even wish bad things for you. But I don't trust you. And I don't want you in my life anymore. His face crumpled, just slightly. But. No, I said firmly. You made your choice, and I made mine. I'm done. The weight of those words settled between us. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then he nodded, just once. Okay. And without another word, he turned and walked away. I watched him go, waiting for the regret to hit. But it never did. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even sad. I was free. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. The person I had always been, before betrayal, before heartbreak. The person who deserved better. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. Thank you for watching the video, like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.